Oh yeah, because
like,
he doesn't require like an outstanding on the WLs.
But like Draco just got in.
He just got in, and he's also actively practicing legilimency throughout the whole year against
occlumency
against Snape. Which is the thing that like Harry can't grasp to save his life. He's like fixing the vanishing cabinet. People don't give Malfoy, I don't think, enough credit for just being otherwise he's a pain.
He's an absolute pain, an absolute jerk. But I think people it's easy to like rope him in with like Crabbe and Goyle. Is like he's like annoying and he has resources, but he's not actually very good at the stuff. But like he is good at the stuff.
He is good at the stuff for sure. One of the huge ironies though that we see inside of this chapter is that like really Draco is kind of his own worst enemy when it comes to this whole Quidditch thing, because if not for his like sort of jerk move and picking on Neville and stealing the Remember All, like then Harry doesn't. He's not able to display his instinctive abilities on the broomstick. And
my note at the end of this chapter was Malfoy keeps accidentally advancing the plot for Harry.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he takes the Remember All. Harry gets on the Quidditch team. He challenges him to the midnight duel. Harry finds the trap door.
Even the fact that like from the very beginning that like Draco was one of the first fellow students that he ever met and sort of like brought about this like negativity attached to the name of Slytherin House. Like even that, it's like Draco was sort of like dictating some of like how Harry responds to what he's seeing.
I know. There's like a certain amount of like Draco is Voldemort's worst enemy and has no idea.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, that would be a hilarious plot line to tug on. Is sort of like if anything, I think Malfoy keeps getting in the way of like what if Harry gets to Hogwarts and has no idea about any of this stuff, there's a very real chance he just ends up in Slytherin.
Just ends up in Slytherin,
right? Yeah, where he, although that would even suck for Malfoy, because if he became Slytherin's Seeker, then that would mean Draco doesn't make the team as Seeker.
Well, it would, but it's like I wonder if Draco would have cared. It's like I think Draco wants to be the Slytherin Seeker because Harry is the Gryffindor Seeker.
So he wants to be able to go toe to toe with him,
right? So because he wants to prove that he's better than him. But if they were in the same house and Harry was already the Seeker, I imagine Malfoy would still want to be on the team, just as a different position.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. And we do know from Ginny that you can play more than one position pretty easily, or at least possibly.
Yeah. You can transferable skills.
Yes, of course. We did sort of we jumped around a little bit here, but like a couple of things I thought were particularly interesting is a piece of trivia that I just highlighted is that Dean's poster is of West Ham soccer team.
Yep.
One of the things I thought was sort of just mildly interesting, and I'd be curious if like other copies of the book read it as football team, just because this is like a UK-based public
from home like almost on the daily, it sounds like, because I'm just trying to imagine either Narcissa or Lucius like packing him a basket of treats, and I'm like. It's like in my mind, like you'd love to think that in most cases this is just like a mom being like, oh, he's probably homesick. I'm sending him some treats to make him feel good. But like in my mind, Narcissa is packing this basket solely with the intent that like when this lands, the other students will know Draco's better than them.
I think that's exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, her name is Narcissa.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, it's not that far off from Narcissus. So I think 100% she's just literally trying to ensure that everybody knows that like her son is getting like even more than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Almost to a fault, because I mean, on some level you could probably just send enough treats for a week and not send an owl daily.
Oh, I know. It's absolutely crazy. Then just a few lines down, there's when Neville gets to Remember All, like there's Neville was trying to remember what he'd forgotten. I love that. It seems like the obvious problem with the Remember All, like how is it ever going to help you do anything? But in the movies, there's like a very like just neat like eagle eye thing you can notice where like if you look at Neville's surroundings as he picks up the Remember All, it turns red, and it's like the thing he has forgotten is his robes. Like all the other students are wearing robes, but he is not.
Oh, I've never caught that before.
Yeah, so
that's
that is the thing he's forgotten in the movie, which I always think is really fun.
Nope, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay.
But then it also says when Malfoy comes over to like take it from Neville, it's like it says who was passing by the Gryffindor table, and it's like again, Malfoy, stop being so obsessed, because they have laid out for you how the tables are arranged, and there is just no reason at all for Draco to be meandering over towards the Gryffindor table.
It's
like at all.
He's gone drastically
Yeah.
out of his way. And it's probably because he's not paying attention to his own owl's arrival, and he's literally just watching what's happening amongst the other first-year Gryffindor boys, and has gone far out of his way to go and be a menace. Which, like, that's like one of those things where it says, like McGonagall, who could spot trouble quicker than any teacher in the school, was there in a flash. It's like, no, I bet what McGonagall saw was Draco walking across the entire Great Hall.
I know.
To
Like,
go
there's just no reason for him to be there.
It's like guaranteed. This is just to cause trouble. So anyway, as we scoot forward, though, there's just an interesting like little detail that I think helps give us some contextualization. Well, I don't know why I said context as to how many students are in each class.
Yes,
so we've always known. Did you pick up on this?
I
too?
did. I circled it. Yeah.
Okay. So like one of the big things we've always been really curious about is it seems like there's shockingly few students at school. Basically, we know Harry is one of 5 boys in the Gryffindor common room. He's of course there with Ron, Neville, Dean, and Seamus. Hermione is
not that he's always aware of that. I'm going to point out for later in the chapter.
Sure, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But the other is that we know that Hermione knows Lavender Brown and Parvati Patil as the other 2 first-year Gryffindors, and then there are somehow possibly two other unnamed Gryffindor girls that we never get an intro to, which seems shocking.
It kind of does.
Like how could they have no role in anything ever at all?
Or else it's just those 3, and the Slytherin first years vastly outnumber the Gryffindors.
Which is possible, but yeah, so the line that Jay and I both caught on to here is that the Slytherins were already there. This is for flying lessons. And it says, and so were 20 broomsticks lying in neat lines on the ground. So what we've always sort of extrapolated, and this is based on minimal evidence, but it's essentially that, let's say that there are 5 boys in the Gryffindor, 5 girls in Gryffindor, 5 boys in Slytherin, 5 girls in Slytherin, 20 broomsticks total.
Yeah.
And then approximately what you end up with is 40 new students per year, 280 students total that attend Hogwarts at once. As we pointed out, though, there is a chance that numbers are overall down during these particular years because these are the students who would have reached age 11 sort of in the wake of Voldemort's peaked power.
Right.
So it's entirely possible that families were not having kids because they were otherwise too afraid of what was going on and not wanting to bring children into a world where somebody like that was at rule, or potentially going to seize rule, or the other is just simply quite literally fighting in the fight against.
Oh yeah,
Voldemort.
or they were just being killed.
Right. Exactly,
It would almost make sense for there to be more Slytherin kids
in that
a
way.
little bit.
In that way, it would make sense. Yeah. So
like they would have felt maybe the safest during that time.
Right. So I don't have an issue assuming that there are 12 Slytherins here and 8 Gryffindors.
Sure. I mean, we know Draco, Crabbe, Goyle, and Blaze are 4 of the Slytherin boys, and then we know just of Pansy Parkinson, I think, and Millicent Bulstrode of the girls.
I think you're right.
Yeah, there might be more known ones, but... Those are the ones that come to mind.
Speaking of Pansy, there was a detail, I don't know if you caught this one or not, that I thought was kind of interesting, but Pansy Parkinson famously throughout the entire story will always refer to Hermione as her last name of Granger. However, on the very next page, Pansy does get like her first speaking lines, I believe, and says, "Ooh, sticking up for Longbottom." A hard-faced Slytherin girl said, "Never thought you'd like fat little crybabies, Parvati." And so she refers to Parvati by her first name. That's like one of those things where it's like, is there a chance that the Patil twins would have grown up close to or in proximity to Pansy?
I actually wrote that down too. I said, did they know each other?
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, because even the Patil twins are sorted into different houses. So,
but they've all got that like alliterative P name as well.
They
randomly.
do. Yeah. And so this is like one of those things where like we know that prior to age 11, wizarding kids are not they're not attending like a formalized school system. They're just educated by their parents. But it's not to say that like a lot of the wizarding families wouldn't just simply know one another and have their kids spending time. So that's like a really interesting like sleight of hand. I feel like that almost suggests like these girls grew up knowing each other.
Well, but then I think that might even continue to track because I think in Order of the Phoenix, the Patil's parents are thinking of taking them out of school.
That is true.
So they might be more like on the ministry side of things.
They very well could be.
Ooh, that is interesting.
That's a good point. Yeah. And that being said, Parvati and Lavender end up being, of course, best friends as Gryffindors, but they can be a little bit at times shallow. It feels they sort of get like ultra enamored with like divination and they're I guess Parvati has a little bit of a crush on Harry as of fourth year and it, of course attends the Yule Ball with him, and it's like, is that like, was it because like Harry's like a school champion, and it's like a little bit of social hierarchy,
a little bit, yeah. I mean, and then I think Seamus refers to Parvati and Padma as like the best looking girls in the class or something.
Yes, yeah, he is, yeah.
So I mean, they're like, she's like a popular girl.
Yeah, absolutely,
basically,
for sure.
Yeah, but I also, this is that said, this was a great chapter for Parvati, which I've never really noticed before. Like when Malfoy starts, he says, "Did you see it? Did you see his face, the great lump?" And the other Slytherins start laughing, and Parvati is the one who speaks up and says, "Shut up, Malfoy." I was like, "Oh, good for you, Parvati." Look at you don't see Parvati do a lot of standing up to anyone for most of the book. I mean, she's in the DA later on.
Yes, yeah.
So there is like that, but like this is like a nice tiny little character moment for her, and I think she has another one later on in the chapter as well. We'll see if I can find it again as we keep moving.
Yeah, well, speaking of tiny character roles, let's talk about Madam Hooch for just one hot second, who clearly has just got the most choice position at Hogwarts
Oh my gosh.
of anybody, because near as we know, like flying lessons are like a really big deal, and I suppose it's possible that like they have other flying lessons that they just don't tell us about, but as far as we know, this is the only one they ever have. And beyond this, the only other thing that we know Madam Hooch to do for the school at all is referee the Quidditch matches, which, each team plays 3 games total per season. Like, this is like one of those, like my brain can never math correctly, but 4 teams that all play each other that end up accumulating.
I think it's 6 games total.
Okay, yeah. So it's like, it's not a...
One to Honeydukes is like in the back of the statue of like the one-eyed witch.
Yes,
right?
The one-eyed witch. I do remember that one.
Yeah. This is like a really cool attention to detail thing. Earlier this year, I was playing through Hogwarts Legacy, which I only got like a third of the way through.
Okay.
But like I was just you're just wandering through the castle, and at some point, like I looked up on the wall, and like there was just this big painting of the of like trolls in tutus or whatever.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, and I turned around and I was like, this is where the room of requirement is. Like, it's right here. And I wasn't at that point in the book or in the game yet, but like, sure enough, later on, it was like, boom, this is where it is. And it was like so fun to like realize that like this is from the book. It's right. It's got to be. This is where it is. Where it's supposed to be.
Like the attention to detail was like right on point.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That was a very fun discovery.
No, that's so cool. Yep, I love it. Let's see here. So then we finally start to edge forward to the actual midnight duel. The chapter's namesake here, where Malfoy basically comes over and once again is just basically like egging Harry on a little bit in a way that it's like he's had to cross the whole Great Hall in order to be a pain.
Mm-hmm.
You start to learn like a little bit, I guess, about what like wizard dueling is, but it still feels like
sort of.
It feels to me like this is like the 11-year-old's interpretation of how it's supposed to go down, because like basically Ron basically steps in immediately knowing that Harry basically doesn't know what a wizard's duel is, and Malfoy says like, never heard of a wizard's duel before, I suppose, and Ron's like, no, of course he has, I'm his second, who's yours? And it's like this idea of having like a second in a duel, like maybe this is a thing for like real world duels, a la Alexander Hamilton or something.
I know. I'm like trying to figure out what they mean by like a wizard's duel here, because like if you're like, what is the situation they're in where it's like it is civil enough for there to be rules, like there is a second to come in, but it's like a situation where death is on the line, and like it feels like if you're like when they're in like the Battle of Hogwarts, people are dueling all over the place, but that feels like dueling in a sense of like we're fighting in a war.
Yes.
What they're describing sounds more like an organized event.
It absolutely does. Yes.
But it's like what are the situations where death is on the line, but you're like, but we'll have a backup person where the backup person isn't just helping you defeat your like deadly opponent.
Well, I think it's like a defending of one's honor type of situation.
Yeah.
Like I think like in Game of Thrones or whatever, I think Tyrion, this is where he has oh goodness gracious, if I hadn't started
Jamie.
Is it Jamie who fights on his behalf?
Oh, well that's who he wants to fight on his behalf.
But he ends through.
Newsflash! Pentaconi's Charmony Festival has entered its countdown phase. The singer Robin, famous throughout the cosmos, has announced in a recent press conference that she will release a new album for the festival.
Portrait hole.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're always doing that, Dean. Like,
Yeah.
you're always helping me through the hole. And this is like, it's funny because, and maybe it's because I was influenced partially by this particular photo just in the first book, but I never think of the portrait hole as like something you would need help to get through.
Yeah.
I always just sort of think of it as like a big painting hanging on the wall, and there's just like a threshold like any other door would have. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the door doesn't extend all the way to the ground. Like there is a certain amount of like stepping through it.
That's
I was
true.
imagining this one, the one in the book makes it look like really big. Like you do have to step over it, but I think like in my mind, I've always imagined it like a big oval or something, which seems like it would be such a hassle in the morning if lots of students are all exiting the common room at the same time. Like, hold on, we all got to climb through.
that does, yeah. It seems like that would be incredibly cumbersome to
Yeah,
kind
to
of like
see such a
weasel your way
pain
through
in the
this like unusual position every
Everyone's
time. You're right, though.
really
Maybe I have pictured an oval in my head, and it's like, how big does the oval have to be in order to have a proper shaped rectangle behind it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the portrait door; it's the portrait hole. The
portrait hole, yeah.
I've never described a hole. You see a square hole?
A square hole.
Square hole.
Actually, for a period of time, also, like before we really got going with Super Carlin Brothers, our mom works for the local SPCA.
Yeah.
And I was digging the graves for the pet cemetery.
Oh, what a fun job!
As like a spare, my side hustle or whatever.
fun
Which one,
job.
digging holes, the hardest exercise known to man, and very difficult. But oddly, I do think of holes sometimes as square, simply
Oh.
because I was digging graves.
All right, well.
and they were square. But that was a total aside, and mostly just an opportunity to talk about this really weird and eclectic job I once did. Anyway, so what do you think of the chapter art? You like this one?
I like this one. Yeah, I think it's so funny that it shows Harry and Ron like in their pajamas, and even in their like in the chapter it says like they put on their bathrobes, and I was like, guys, what, you're going to what you think is a duel? Why aren't you wearing better clothes?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Why are you gonna be out there dueling Malfoy in your bathrobe?
In your bathroom.
Come on, man.
That does feel like one of those things
Yeah,
like, where I can
I
imagine
would
Malfoy showing up
wear
actually and being like,
bathrobe.
he's wearing bathrobes? like,
Potter.
it feels like the type of thing Malfoy would never let Harry live down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
so
would be
anyway.
it. Yeah. He's just there with the camera. Oh, gotcha.
Gotcha journalism at its best.
Yep.
Okay, do you have a review for us for today?
Well, I can give you a quick review from over on Apple Podcasts here. Yes, this one comes from Rachel C., who says, such a great conversation. I listened to all the available episodes, 1 through 5, and then had to get my husband involved, so we were starting from the beginning and getting caught up. We listen to the books every night to go to sleep, and the questions we have are similar to the ones that the Carlin brothers bring up. I love their conversation, and we can still have over the books. My husband wants to know if squibs can use magical objects or not, if you could help him out.
Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, so they could use like a port key?
Like, could they use a port key? Like, I'm like thinking like the Deluminator or something. It seems like I don't see any reason that wouldn't work. You know?
That's true.
That it seems like you just click it. Would it be like, no, you're not magic. It's just a lighter to you.
Yeah, like this literally just does the function you expect it to.
Yeah.
That feels like the type of thing like a magical inventor may incorporate into kind of like Newt Scamander's case, like where he had the ability to like magicify it or not, on the basis of. But that's something he's manually doing, not just like if you open it, it's like. To anybody else, it just
This
looks
is a
like,
good question because it's like, could a squib go into the pensive? Something like that.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's
Could anyone? Could a muggle?
Right, that's the question. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I'm trying to get like a baseline for anything that we see that could potentially be unusual.
Okay, what's coming to mind is ghosts for me, where muggles can't become ghosts. Only wizards can become ghosts.
Okay.
But so could a squib become a ghost? This is a tricky one.
That is a tricky one. I mean, again, I think we have a very, very, very small example to go off of, but I do think Jacob uses a port key in the Fantastic Beasts movies when they go on the bucket.
You're right. You're right.
and
so to that end, yes.
Yeah, so I think that's the only nearly canon explanation that we would have as to how or when or why like anybody who's non-magical, because I largely think that when it comes down to it, a squib is sort of like a derogatory term that is otherwise just being used towards what are effectively just
You're so lucky to be seeing this. Honkai Star Rail is giving away 80 free pulls when you tap on the screen of this video. That means you can start off with some awesome characters like Black Swan or Sparkle. That's right, it's the one with incredible anime graphics, super epic combat, and a soundtrack that makes you feel like you're the star of your
like witch and wizard born muggles.
Right, but there is like some. I think the problem comes when Mrs. Fig is defending Harry in court.
And it's the question of whether or not
whether squibs can see the Dementors. Because Muggles can't see Dementors, but wizards can. But she's a squib, and she says she can, and they don't know.
Yeah, even I think Fudge in that situation is like, can they? And like this is like one of those situations where you can't tell because like Mrs. Fig seems better than we've ever really known her to be in the past. Like in terms of like she even says like, you know, I had to kind of make it uncomfortable for you for all those years because otherwise the Dursleys, you know, if they thought you were having a good time, they wouldn't have let you come over.
Yeah.
So you're like almost wondering like to what lengths was Mrs. Fig being like, man, I'm really gonna have to like find ways to make this uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or is Mrs. Fig still just sort of like a you know your stereotypical like cat lady who you know lives you know in solitude and
Although,
maybe.
Even to that end, like this is like some extracurricular reading on like Pottermore, but like Mrs. Fig is not cats; they're Neasels
That
she's
true.
breeding. So she's still like
Yeah,
interacting
very
with the
true.
magical world
That's a good point.
in some capacity,
Yeah.
right?
And yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. And the other one too is that like if you're a Muggle, you're not supposed to be able to see the castle. And to backtrack on our own theory about Filch, who otherwise we believe to be a squib, at least
Right.
based on the writing.
Yeah, that's not necessarily canon. But so like within the story, he's presumably just a squib
Yes.
who works at the school, but he can see the school because he works there.
Right. Yeah. So that must mean on some level. I feel like
But then Jacob goes inside the school too.
that's also true.
Yeah.
That's also true. Yeah.
So it's like maybe once you like from afar, it would look like moldering old ruins, but like once you actually went inside, it would just look like it's supposed to.
Maybe that's like that's like one of those things where it does feel like there's a big disillusionment charm over the whole castle, but it's like a disillusionment charm is just simply so that you don't keep investigating. It's just sort of be like, well, there's no reason to go over there. Which, you know, if you know anything about actual human muggles, we would absolutely investigate ruins to the nth degree.
Yeah, right.
So it's like that. I don't think that would really dissuade most muggles, but either way. But that would suggest that like if you were to cross through the barrier, then of the disillusionment charm, then what you would see is just what's actually there.
I think muggles could use magical objects. I think the port key is a great example. Like the port key exists and they use it. And I feel like if Jacob was holding the invisibility cloak, he could use it.
Right.
You know?
He also, if he drinks the giggle water, it does cause him to giggle, which
Right.
sounds like not that magical, but I'm assuming that giggle water is a magically infused beverage.
Like beverage. Yeah.
You know, so it's like on some level, like it is doing the thing that it is supposed to be able to accomplish. Because otherwise there's no like liquid you could drink now that would like you would take a sip and make you laugh.
Right.
So, okay. I think squibs.
I mean, Jacob was in Newt's case, you know?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I think squibs could interact with magical objects.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that you couldn't channel your magic through anything, but that doesn't mean that a magical object wouldn't still do what it magically does of its own accord.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even if you go to like Fred and George's disappearing head hats,
Yeah.
like Hermione comments that the spell inside of the hat must be like particularly like skillful.
Yeah. But this is also just Arthur's whole job. It's just the misuse of Muggle artifacts, and it's just like Muggles getting, you know, in accidents with magically enchanted objects. So
That's
like,
also true.
I mean,
Yeah.
they don't know how to use them correctly, but they interact with them plenty.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
So yes,
Yes.
To answer your question,
But it wasn't obvious.
Yeah.
It took some.
yeah, we got there.
Yeah, we got there in the end. So anyway, but yeah, if you guys have any reviews for us, it certainly does help the show out a lot. If you'd be happy to go and leave us a 5-star, you may also get the opportunity to hear your review read here on the podcast.
Oh, and leave
So-
us a question. That was fun.
The questions are fun.
Yeah.
We also have a spreadsheet down below, which I feel like we have not interacted interact with in the way that we want to at all. Not a spreadsheet, but a Google form where if you have a question about a specific chapter, especially if it's one that is upcoming, you can submit your question through there, and that is actually something we can try to incorporate into future episodes of the show.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to sort of, get involved a little bit in the conversation, and maybe if there's something that Jay and I don't happen to catch inside of the chapter, which I have to say, it blows my mind how often me and you have highlighted the same.
Oh, I know, the
words
things
and
that like
phrases.
stand out to us.
Yeah, but that possibly is due to the fact that you and I look at the story through the same lens so frequently. Anyway.
Yeah.
But if there's anything we haven't touched on, anything that you know is upcoming that you want to make sure that we do discuss, be sure to check out that Google form down below and submit it. We would absolutely appreciate it. But I think that's all for today.
Yeah, otherwise, we'll see you next time through the Griffin Door.
Yes. I hope to write this video, and if you just don't know what your situation in the comment section down below, and don't forget to hit the link in the description down below to order your sticker or your power from Duel, and you get 10% off your order if you use my promo code DJRevolution in the promo code section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.